and also broadcasting to an audience that maybe online, so we'll possibly have some public comment or anyone else there. With that, I defer the chair and people that have any board members or attendees of the public. We have Mark
Morton
promoting him.
Hello.
Mark, are you here?
I am here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Excellent.
Okay, it's 7 o'clock. I'll call the meeting to order. Roll call. I'm present. Jim Kirkland, present.
Stephanie Vantage, present.
Tara Cedarholm, present.
Mark Sendron present.
Excellent. All right. I'd like to, because we have folks online, we have folks here, I thought, let's approve the minutes, and then go into the 10 Fruit Street issue, and then backtrack and do the other issue. So, if we could just start with the minutes first of the January 16th meeting. Thank you, Tara, for putting those together. Any comments, additions, corrections? Any motion to approve? Seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, unanimous. The minutes of the January 8th or January 28th meeting. Any comments, additions?
Is this public comment time?
No, we're still doing minutes. Motion.
Move to accept the minutes of January 28th.
Second.
Sure.
A second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
They are approved as well. I'd like to, like I said, move into the 10 Fruit Street request for certificate. I'd like to just kind of summarize where I think we are. Is Leslie?
Can you see me?
No,
Okay,
we can
hold
hear you.
on. Can you see me?
No?
Can you hear me?
Yes, very well.
Okay, hold on a second. Where's my picture here?
Chair,
Yes.
might we want to do public comment first?
Well, I'd like to,
What do you want to do?
sort of kind of tee up the issue first and have Leslie talk about what she wants to do and then have a public comment, I think, if that's okay with the group.
Okay, hold on, guys. I know that you can see me. I don't see my, I don't know where my,
Not necessary. Yeah, we can hear you fine.
I can hear you fine.
Not important.
okay, I see my name on there. Switch to sharing contact. Hold on. I see only Fruit Street minutes.
Hearing as an attendee, that Zoom like she may turn on, Zoom doesn't allow her to have the camera come through, so. Leslie, it isn't necessarily important, unless that's a concern to you. I think it's because of you being a general public attendee on the Zoom that we may not be able to show your camera on our end because you're not a board member or panel.
All right,
But you can see us, that's correct?
that is correct.
Okay, excellent. All right, so we are here under the new business item, the 10 Fruit Street request for a certificate of applicability for the ductwork and mini split system, the exterior part of the mini split system that is viewable from the public way, and that we decided at the last meeting it needs to have a public hearing according to the ordinance. So that's why we're here tonight. Unlike many such requests, this particular unit is already installed, so it's not as if we are involved in the early stages at this point. So it's already there. So this is sort of ex post facto request for a certificate of applicability. And let me just leave it at that. And Leslie, do you want to kind of let us know, from your perspective, how we got here and what you were asking for?
Yes, I will. When I bought the house, in the contract, it said, it was in the title plan section. It said Newburyport Local Historic District, which I had dealt with before, because I renovated 87 High. Now, unbeknownst to me, I guess Fruit has a subcommittee, which I didn't know of, which was never told to me. I hired a plumber I looked at the work and saw the ducting and personally did not find it offensive. And so we had a contract for him to put the splits in. I came back to California. The fires broke out January 7th, and it was chaos. My adjacent city is actually burnt to the ground. They pulled a permit on January 15th. Furthest thing from my mind when I had evacuees here was what was going on in Newburyport. I apologize for that. But at the same time, when I called him on it, like, did you check? Was there a, historical, point that you could have filled out on the permit? He said, no, there was not. There was no red flags or anything else that had gone. And my understanding is that when you're having plumbing work or electrical work, they can pull it on the same day. Now, I did say to the company, make sure that there's nothing, that's a problem with with the Newburyport historical. I didn't realize that that Fruit had its own. Maybe we should give out pamphlets when we do a closing for rules and regulations and steps taken to the new owners. But that's basically what I have to say. This is the 5th house that I've owned in Newburyport. Love the city, and have, done a lot of good work there. So, yeah, what do you guys think? I don't know.
Get to that in a second. Let me open it up for any other public comment, on this whole issue.
So this is public comment.
This is public comment. Do you want to stand on the line, please? And state your name again.
Jim Roy, 4 Fruit Street. I have a few general comments to make and a couple of specific ones about this. But as probably most of you know, I was on the steering committee that put this thing together. We spent almost 5 years shepherding it through the city council and all the rest of it. And I have to say, the last several months, I've not been too happy with what's going on here. Generally speaking, it seems to me people are dissing the whole thing, just ignoring it or claiming ignorance or not following through. I mean, if you're, is it number 7 Fruit, took down a chimney, just bingo, did it. They've owned that building for over half a century, they know. Then we see number 12, they don't even have a building permit for half the stuff they've done. And, I just think they're just kind of giving us the finger. Now, the deal with number 10. First of all, I agree with the applicant here. It should be prima facie obvious that when someone moves into Fruit Street, there are only 15 houses, I think, in the whole deal. Someone from this commission has got to go over there and say, introduce themselves and say, hey, look, this is a historic district. You can't do just about, some things you can do, but other things you have to get approval, and we're happy to consult and all that sort of thing. But ignorance should never be an excuse for someone going ahead and doing something. Now, these mini split things are obviously the rage. Everyone's doing it. We've got the Porter House down at the corner of Prospect and Fruit. That's going to be on the market this spring. That's obviously going to be a major redo for somebody. Those people have got to understand that we're in a historic district, and we've got some rules and regs to follow. Now, this thing with number 10, it's not the worst thing in the world. A few more downspouts, a few more, things that don't belong, and that's the obvious point. It doesn't belong. And so, if you rubber stamp and say, okay, you do it, it's a precedent. The next person who comes down the road and says, and wants a mini split, and doesn't want to bother with the word conduit, I said, well, they got away with it. They've got it. Precedence is really important here. Only 15 houses. I don't know what the solution to this is. I don't know if it's practical to tell this person we gotta remove them. That's what ought to be done. I don't think it will be done. I mean, the historic district is not supposed to be something that you get beaten over the head with. I mean, we're all neighbors, trying to make things work. But I think we have to enforce some of these things. So that's, thank you.
Yeah, I do want to just point out that, supposedly, part of every closing package and every house that closes in the district, we've gone to great lengths to work with the real estate community. We had the former chair was a real estate agent, and we developed a sheet of paper that is part of every closing package. I know I got one when I moved in here, that pointed out the unique qualities of the Fruit Street Historic District and where to find more information if we were going to do anything. So whether, Leslie, you got that or not, I don't know, but
No, I did not. I didn't receive anything. I was clueless. And now, like I said, this is my 5th home. It's not as if I'm, oh, I'm from California. How would I know? No, I know the workings of Newburyport, but a subcommittee, it never entered my mind.
Comments, questions from the group?
So just, comment of clarification, this isn't a subcommittee of the historical commission. The Fruit Street Historic District is a local historic district under chapter 40C. So it is unlike, for example, the house, you owned on 87 High Street, which is in the National Register Historic District, but that doesn't regulate anything. It's in the demolition control overlay district, which does have local regulations through the historic commission. So sorry, that's probably complicated, but the Fruit Street Historic District Commission is an entity of its own outside of the city's historic commission. So I had a couple of questions, and I do think it's unfortunate that this didn't come to the commission before the work was started, because I know of homes with mini splits, federals and Georgians, even older, where the ductwork has been hidden in the walls. And in a federal, often you have closets on the outside wall which line up, so it's pretty easy actually to put ductwork in the back of the closet and not on the exterior of the building. And those are things that, with consultation, which is free from the commission and people who, like at the Newburyport Preservation Trust, it's free and it could solve some problems and yes, get a better outcome. I have a question, and that is, did you consider, when this system was being designed, putting any of the ductwork inside? And the second question is there more ductwork to be done?
Okay, more ductwork to be done? No, the job is finished. The electrical was signed off just last week. And no, I never considered putting it inside. I just don't, I don't know how all of that works. Now I understand I'm calling it a subcommittee, and whatever the name is, I wish, again, I would have known that it existed. And on 87 High, I completely redid with forced air and heat, gas, took the oil thing out, and also put radiant heat on. So that was the transformation there. So it was a completely different system. This system obviously does have the vents outside. I didn't even know that you could put them inside. And unfortunately. So that's where we are.
I guess I would only say something that I know I've said in other meetings, to other applicants, and it is unfortunate if, that information was not, delivered to the new owner of the house. Is that ignorance of the regulations is not an excuse. And I sort of agree with the idea that we shouldn't necessarily, factor that in as part of our consideration, and I think precedent is really important. I'm also a little concerned that the applicant said that the, plumber did not get a flag when he pulled the permit, because I worked really closely, as you know, Joe, with the, planning office to make sure that permits on Fruit Street got flagged. And the report is going to confirm that.
I'll defer to you. I'd like to speak to the chair on that issue because it has to help the best ability I can, the commission's understanding and everyone else's understanding of how that works mechanically. Defer to you if you're ready for me to just insert it.
I'm ready.
So we've had some discussion about this. It's worth noting, by the way, that we went to online permitting, a couple of years back, and things have basically migrated into that format. So using essentially that platform, Starry noted, we use flags, geographic flags, to identify where a property is for a permit that's being pulled. And with that, determine whether or not certain zoning districts are involved, right? Things like that, in this case, a historic district. The distinction here, I think, and this is something that was fleshed out a little further with our zoning administrator and our building commissioner, and the person who deals with from the back end of our software configuration, some of this obviously being, based on those configurations, is that a lot of the mechanical work, like electrical and plumbing around the city, it's not necessarily going to trigger anything that's related to zoning. And so it didn't seem that there was a trigger there, even though a geographic flag could be applied to that. And that's essentially, I think it's come up here, and then as a consequence of some of the discussions we're having tonight about, whether or not things are being flagged. Obviously, the city officials, unless we're informed by the butter when we're coming by, we may not notice that someone hasn't already pulled a permit. But certainly if we have the ability to try to set flags for things. So here, where something is following the district, this was raised as a concern. Well, perhaps not all plumbing permits should go right through as just a mechanical permit that doesn't require any sort of zoning administrator review or Office of Planning and Development review, because that's the office that can best determine whether or not these other regulations, land use regulations, are being triggered. And unfortunately, I think the mechanicals were kind of perceived as being really just a building department sort of thing. And so we had the ability to sort of tweak, from experiences here. But I think that's really, in summary, the reason why we might not have seen a lot of these mechanical things just triggering here. Here we see the importance because this mechanical work actually overlaps with jurisdiction of the Historical District Commission. Because those, well, it might otherwise be allowed anywhere else just according to the plumbing code. Here, it actually has aesthetic impact and therefore has to be reviewed by the commission. So again, just to reassure the commission, we periodically make changes like this, and this is one of them that's come up, is trying to make sure that plumbing permits, for instance, or mechanicals are work that's going on outside here. And it is also an educational process to a degree, because even though the building office doesn't deal with these types of things like the zoning administrator or our office does as a land use regulation, making sure that the building commissioner, assistant, commissioner, and the, those that they use to do plumbing, it's periodically changed, but those who are doing inspections for plumbing and electrical also understand that. So, to your point, when someone buys a property. So it's something we've learned from, made a tweak, and we hope to not see problems again. But that's probably the reason why the flag wasn't, indicated here, because generally speaking, plumbing was perceived, at least to that point, as not being a land use trigger.
Correct.
But let me just throw in sort of my experience with this, because I saw holes that I live on number 8, so it's right across the driveway. I saw holes being drilled in the house as I was reading the paper around 8:30 in the morning, and wasn't quite sure what was going on. I had breakfast, was leaving. There was some more work being done. And I asked the plumber, so what's going on here? And he said, oh, we're putting in a mini split system. I thought, well, that's fine. I didn't see anything come through the planning department that this was even on the agenda, or if there was any kind of a certificate, applied for. So I contacted the, planning department, and they, apparently had conversations with the building department and confirmed that there were no permits pulled, and Ray Earls, the building, director, inspector, actually came out on site, as far as I understand. I left for the day and came back later, but I understand later that he actually spoke with the plumber about what the crew that was working, about the need for a permit. I mean, I would have thought that he would have seen that this is exterior work going on, and would have stopped it right then and there, or at least, said you're proceeding on your own risk. So that, I mean, that's kind of how I thought it went down, but, is that, Andy? You understand it, or?
Yeah, again, just not having the trigger automatically, and the fact that this is a distinct issue, the fact that if someone may not have pulled a permit, that's a totally separate issue.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
Just the obvious, looking at the regulations, were this to come up even as a plan, at least I would. And I understand that we're going back and looking at this, kind of a retrospective way, but the regulation is the regulation.
My, I'm kind of with you on that one, Jim, that if this were coming, before us, I think the two front, ducts are obviously not appropriate. I think the plumbers did a very good job at hiding the condenser circulator that is not visible at all from the street. The rather ugly ducts in the back, that don't follow any kind of, gutter line or a line of house. You can see them from the street. You can see them more from my kitchen window and from every room facing south of my house, in the back, but that's not within the purview of this. It can be ugly to a neighbor, but if you can't see them from the street, it's okay. However, you can see them from the street, at least when the leaves are down in the winter, pretty clear. And so again, I would think that I would approve the location of the condenser. I think the ducts, I would have suggested that they be moved inside. And you know, this is not without precedent. Since I've been here and moved here in 2013, there's been reconstruction, construction, AC system was put in number 2 that we just approved. They went through the whole permitting process from the get-go. Number 8, we did when we came in here. We sat before this commission, talked about what we wanted to do, and learned very quickly we couldn't put anything on the exterior, and so we had a whole interior system at great expense, going through all kinds of walls, but it was something that we were told we had to do, and we did it. Number 12, for all they're not pulling permits, they at least are on the air conditioning side doing the right thing and keeping all their air conditioning stuff out of sight, out of mind. The 16-18 renovation, I didn't see any exterior AC ductwork there that's not appropriate. The number 5 renovation, the Victorian, they put central air there. Again, they didn't do anything exterior, everything was done interior. So it's possible to do that. Is it costlier? Yes, it is. I'm sure it is. But just the research I did since this application came up, there are ways of running these things inside through the stud cavities down into the basement and draining, condensate draining out, and the other wires connecting to the outside unit. So you know, I guess I'm hesitant to approve it as presented. I guess I'd Leslie offer a suggestion that, and this is with the board's concurrence, that perhaps the plumbers kind of review their ability to rent something in the interior of the building, down the outside wall cavities, and basically continue this decision. If I read the room right, I don't think you're gonna get approval tonight. But we could perhaps continue it and have the plumber do a little bit more homework in terms of providing alternatives. Is that something that makes sense to the?
Can I say something? Okay. I'd prefer if you tell me what is acceptable instead of me continuing to spend money and not, and have to have another hearing and redo what I've tried to undo. And I have another question. Are the window units allowed on Fruit Street?
Yes, they are. It's subject to the design guidelines that are included in online. And it specifically talks about window units.
Okay, so I mean, like the front of the house, you could have window units sticking out on all of the windows?
It's under 24 of the design guidelines, it says air conditioning units. The commission encourages discrete placement of air conditioning units at the rear or sides of the building.
Okay, so they don't want it on the street. Okay.
So your predecessor had a window unit on the driveway side.
Right. Which is where the spouts are. Okay, so will you please give me a suggestion on, or what is acceptable to this committee before I start spending more money?
I mean, I guess one of the things I would say is that, you know, the guidelines are there. And while we are here to be incredibly helpful, I'm not sure we're here to give specific instructions on how to manage the problem. Problem is that there are exposed ductworks, and that does not comply with the ordinance, and so those ductworks have to be enclosed.
Okay,
Yeah, I think
At the inside.
Can somebody-
Inside the wall.
all right, can somebody please email me or tell me where I can go to see this?
Right on the Newburyport
Wait.
City website, you can go and find all that information.
1 second. I'm sorry. I didn't hear the end of the question.
Okay, Joe, if you can help me, maybe, is it the website that this is on? That I'm currently on? Is it on this website? And will it say Fruit Street Historical?
It'll say city.newburyport.com. You click under boards and commissions, you click on Fruit Street, Historic Commission. And when you get in there, there's a whole set of document choices on the left-hand side, from the ordinance to the rules and regulations to the design guidelines.
Okay. So I have a suggestion for the committee, that if there's only so many houses on Fruit, to make sure that the real estate listing broker discloses this, because
I simply say that I'm well aware that the listing broker understood this, and I had heard that they did disclose it. Maybe they disclosed
They
it to
didn't.
your broker, not you, but I mean, the listing broker for sure knew, she absolutely knew.
Yeah, I talked to the listing broker as well and introduced myself, and in fact, she was even recommended by someone that she might be appropriate to sit on this commission. So we had a good discussion about that. She was very well aware of what you can and can't do. Now, whether that made it to, you know, the selling agent, that I don't know.
okay, because in my contract that I'm holding right now, it just says Newburyport Local Historic District. That's vague. And, you know,
Yeah,
so just so somebody else that buys on Fruit Street doesn't have to go through this. I don't know how you make it more solid for the listing brokers to disclose that, because I just did not know. And quite honestly, like I said, the adjacent city was on fire. I'm usually on top of these things. It was
Well,
chaos.
Liza, let me just cut in too, and kind of respond to Jim White's earlier point. I know that when, some neighbors have moved in, and I know that when Jim, here moved in, Jim Burke moved, Morris and I went down, met him and chatted about the historic condition of the district. I know that I've done that with other people. You weren't here, so I mean, and kind of ironically, you're the closest, neighbor of mine, but I didn't really have a chance to talk to you about this, so.
Right.
So that kind of didn't happen, but I felt that this was all disclosed from the document anyway, so you should have been aware of it from your from materials supplied by your agent.
Right. Well, okay, so
And just to kind of respond to Tara's point about the role of the commission, I don't think we can advise specific things, but I think we can advise in terms of what's acceptable, and I think exterior ducts that are viewable from the public way really aren't appropriate. So I think that leaves, and that any kind of condenser systems and all need to be hidden or screened either by the roof, if it's set back on a roof on a second story, or on the ground, screened by fences or vegetation, which you've obviously done very well. So it's really the exterior ductwork. I mean, I was thinking this brainstorming that, and I don't know whether this would be acceptable to the butters who have to comment on this stuff, or the commission, but if there's two line sets, those two cables were joined closer together, you could put almost a faux downspout and box it in, which is not unlike some of the other downspouts that are on the street and are kind of typical of that period. But the way they're set right now, it just really wouldn't look appropriate to box those in. I wouldn't think. Others may have a different opinion. You agree?
I do agree. I don't think you're appropriate at all.
okay, let me ask you this. Are we also talking about the downspouts that are in my backyard?
You mean the conduit covers?
Yeah.
Anything that's visible from the street, and those are visible from the street.
You didn't lose me. I'm just baffled.
I mean, if they were in the back and more against the bump out, or the main part of the house, kind of similar to where the current condenser is, that's not visible from the street. That was running along that wall, but running where they are right now does give you a pretty good view of them from Fruit Street. I think you'll take a look at it, right? You're not sure on that. So,
Yes.
yeah.
Okay, well, maybe I'll just take them out, put a for sale sign. All right, thank you. I've got to go.
You have a second?
Yeah.
I mean, I think as I said, one option that you have is that to agree to a continuance of this until you have more information when presented at a later date. We as a commission are required by the ordinance to decide on your application within 60 days, and that would run out before our next regularly scheduled meeting. So the only way to get something other than I think probably a negative response here tonight is to request a continuance and then present additional information down the line.
Okay, I request a continuance.
Okay, there's a document that I can get you to sign, or I can have a representative here. I could have them.
Yeah,
sign it.
Peter can sign it.
Okay.
Peter told me.
Okay. Group. And that was something that happens all the time in the historic commissions.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think, it's not forever. the idea is that you have some more information to discuss with us at the next meeting.
Okay, well, I mean, I'm assuming that if I need to put them in the interior of the house, I'm going to have to break open all the walls. Sadly, there are a lot of beautiful wallpaper. That's vintage, not vintage as old as the house, but certainly, has its vibe. And that seems to me to be the only solution that would make this committee comfortable.
That's what I understand is the sense of the committee. Anybody have anything to add?
I would agree. I think they'd be run on the inside.
Joe, if I could.
Yeah.
Just a suggestion, if, for a continuance, if you wanted to just identify the date certain that it's being continued to, for the applicant, let us to know what the date that end up being.
Yes, and it's for the reason. The March 20th. All right, so Leslie, I'll give Peter the copy of the continuance document, and he can sign it on your behalf.
Could you confirm with the applicant that she does want a continuance? I hear some ambivalence about that. Does she want a continuance or does she want to?
Yes, I want a continuance. Yes, I want a continuance, and Peter can sign the paperwork. Peter Tolan, he's sitting there.
Okay, thanks, Leslie, that's great.
You're welcome, Joe.
One other question here.
It's just a suggestion, Ms. Dennis. I know it must be very hard when you're having work done on a house and you're not here. But there are people who can advise you, aside from maybe a lot of plumbers don't understand the aesthetic concerns in a local historic district, but there are people in Newburyport who do and could maybe be good advisors. And the easiest thing I think would be to contact the Newburyport Preservation Trust and see if they will have someone come and look at the situation and have suggestions maybe that will be helpful.
No,
I
thank you for that advice. I actually, 87 High Street, and my neighbor was Dr. Drone, who I know is on this panel. I completely renovated it. The house was a mess. I actually put $2 million into that house. And I was sitting in front of the Newburyport committee. I moved the carriage house and had to get approval for that and got it. And unfortunately, they let the new owner just raise it for some reason. But so, yeah, I'm not a stranger to how Newburyport works, and I think I know what I need to do. So
Excuse
that was
me,
very helpful.
Then clarification, I'm not talking about the Newburyport Historical Commission.
No, I
I'm talking
understand.
about
I understand.
Newburyport Preservation.
And Leslie, I can echo that about the Historical Preservation Trust, because they were very helpful to my wife and me when we moved in terms of historic masons for any kind of chimney work, floor finishers, that sort of thing. So they're a wealth of information and can be very helpful.
Okay, well, I appreciate that. Thanks.
Leslie, sorry, this is Amy Board, the Director of Planning and Development. Just a suggestion might be helpful is you have the ability with your online application to supplement the uploads that you already placed there. So if you're having any new information or revised approach in any way for this, you're welcome to upload that. That the commission can take a look at that information prior to the next meeting. So it's that meeting is as productive as possible for you.
Oh, okay, that's good to know. That's great.
Yeah, you don't have to refile and reopen everything, just give us add information.
Okay, well, I'll have to get on the website and figure out how to do all this stuff, but I'll figure it out.
Okay, anything else?
Not on my end.
Okay. All right, thanks for joining us.
Okay, thanks.
All right. Yep. Okay, Peter, I do have the form here, if you wanna just fill it out for me, and then we can, I'll let you go. Then we can move on.
Instead.
It's Nana's birthday.
Holy word.
Nana's birthday.
Since I moved here, I forgot what month it is, oh.
Okay, thanks so much.
Sure.
All right. Okay, let's move on here.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. So, correspondence and communications, just wanted to, update folks that I met with Andy and his cast of thousands in the planning department, to kind of identify some specific areas in the, rules, regulations and ordinance that, as I said before, kind of inconsistent, just blatantly wrong or confusing, and, you can chime in, but you basically task your staff to kind of review some of those things, edit them, and then, at a future meeting, you'll personally come and present them to this group for discussion. Is that correct?
Yeah, if I could, I think the primary thing that I think came up most recently, and again, I deferred it to Joe, he was chair, and you as commissioners, but, this is routine, I know Stephanie, we've talked about this many times in the council chamber over the years. But the number of city regulations that we have and keeping them up to date and making sure that they make sense. Unfortunately, when it's an ordinance, it takes a little more process because you can't just do it yourselves here, we have to go to city council and go through that process. So when we were talking about it, it's worth noting the distinction between, mechanically how we would update those regulations, through that process versus something you already have, in your jurisdiction to do unilaterally or here. Provided it's not stepping outside the envelope of what the ordinance authorizes, of course. So all that being said, I guess the main thing that I think had come up was, there will be others, but the 14-day time frame, just making it, the idea that the commission's gonna be able to meet in 14 days and close this loop. I think we can talk about, and I don't have any particular preference on that, but it's a routine kind of consideration for boards. Whether that becomes essentially 28 days or a month or whatever you want to, something that's a little, I wish all the statutes were consistent on this sort of stuff. But I don't have a particular preference, but I don't think that 14 days, and I think that you all probably felt that 14 days is not realistic. And we certainly don't want to see the sort of nonsense of, well, this is a constructive approval or, things of that nature. So all that being said, I think, could be inclement weather or other things, perhaps just modifying that date, that timeframe is one thing. But I think this is worthwhile. If we're in that ordinance, we're gonna change something, we might as well update anything else that we think is out of date or problematic in any way, or confusing or ambiguous. And I have to a lesser degree concern, and in terms of diving into it, the regulations or the guidelines, because I feel like that's something that doesn't require as much process or time frame to update. So if we're gonna get going on an ordinance change, I think the sooner the better, because it takes long to get through that process. That's all. But with that, I defer it to really you as commission members about what you think is working or not working, but I know that one was in particular emphasis recently. I know we talked a little bit about the mechanics of other things, like how are permits triggered and, flags and whether or not people, know from their realtors. Those are obviously distinct issues, and it's understandable if somebody buys our property, they should know, what the rules are, and, fire everywhere, that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, I think we're talking about here, making sure that our own ordinances actually work effectively for the commission. So if you have other ideas about what you think should be changed or specific on the date, time frame and things like that, I think the goal here was to take note of those, come back with a markup. If that works for you, I could reach out to the council, get a sponsor, get this in there, sort of cycle through that process so that this ordinance is up to date, something like that.
Joe, do you want commission members to make suggestions?
Well, yeah, I thought, I guess I was a little bit, I thought we were focusing less on the ordinance, which does take a lot to change, but on some of the rules and regulations that kind of interpret the ordinance and that are not consistent with the ordinance, and that really don't reflect how we actually do things anymore. And, you know, I thought, Andy, when we met, that Diane was sort of identifying those, and she had her own ideas of what, and I, you know, I kind of thought the ball was in your court, and you're gonna come back to us with, areas that seem to not work. Now, we can spend, you know, the commission can certainly, redline the rules and regulations and send them to you for then, kind of editing and redlining and coming back with the suggested draft. If that would be better.
No, just to be clear, I think it's not that I would expect you folks to do all that, you don't have to do that, you know, work per se. We're happy to do that, it's just, I think if you could identify substantively something you're concerned about, we can come back at that market for you and be comprehensive about it is the intent, so that there aren't 12 different, you know, and it's an iterative process going on and there's a version. I would ideally like to, if you could just identify a provision, a section, an idea that's concerned you in some way. That way we could come back with hopefully one markup version that has everything in comprehensive. It's just that, you know, yes, most of the stuff that the office might recommend or come up with are things that are sort of ambiguous language or you know, the sort of for instance, there's just some language in there about you know, sort of delegating you know, or having somebody not the commission itself, you know, that could create some issues, you know, so I just things like that could be clarified, you know, in terms of, I don't think it's really a proper procedure to become problematic depending on how much, you know, is specified in the ordinance to sort of delegate or make the assumption that some individual member or some subcommittee is evaluating the adequacy of an application. I think when you and I spoke, one of the things I would just say on that front is that really whether an application is complete should be determined strictly based on the ordinance and the regulations of what's required for submission. So it really shouldn't, in my view, need a commission meeting in order to determine whether it's complete. To determine whether it's appropriate, I think makes sense. But I don't think the commission members themselves should even be bothered with the burden of having to verify whether the material submitted are complete. And that's why on open up, what we do is we set the minimum standards for what they need to submit.
Okay, so not getting into the weeds tonight, but I think we might kind of look at that level of discussion tonight. What's the most helpful for each of us to kind of mark up something and then meet and kind of joint it, and then from that distill it down and then give it to you, or what's the most? I mean,
I have no preference. I just prefer to merge in one cycle because I find that much more efficient than having just an endless series of inputs that you know may never end. So I'd rather have it be as comprehensive as possible. So I have no preference as to how you communicate those. It could be a bullet list. It could be a word markup. I could, you know, send you a word version of the ordinance. You could do markup. And again, the distinction between whether it's regulations or ordinance, I don't care. To me, those are all relevant for your jurisdiction. So I think it'd be up to any of those. It's just the ordinance also has to be the city council.
So as to have, if I let you open meeting laws, we're gonna have to do that in public discussion, is that right?
Well, you can individually send me your comments. I mean, you wouldn't necessarily have the benefit in between a meeting of seeing each other's comments on that necessarily, right? But you could each individually send me your thoughts, I could merge it and, you know, talk about that and say, from the Office of Planning and Development, based on everything we heard, this is what we created. And we could walk through that document, or you could, you know, come back at your future meeting and discuss in the body together and see if everybody's on the same page about what those adjustments are. If you have any kind of concern that my ability to merge those things and make sense in one version may not work for you.
No concern about it.
No.
Okay.
But if you could send a Word version.
Okay. Yeah, we'll do, and we'll do that for the guidelines, and again, you may not have any changes, but the guidelines, the regulations, and the ordinance, and again, if there's any markup. If it's easier for you, an email with a bullet list saying on, you know, this section, I have a question about this or that, the clearer you can be about what he's looking for and why, the easier it is for me to do the markup and help.
All right, so that, Jim, you got something?
Yeah, I was just making sure that I understood what you're looking for. So as you just said, if it's just a list of bulleted items,
Right.
concern for each one of us,
Yeah, I don't think we,
then that's fine.
Yeah.
I'm not asking.
And you do the work, and you do the
No,
work.
I don't think you have to. I think, you know, that's what we're here for, is to help with that. We can help with that, you know, the legalese and the structure and all that. It's just, you know, for instance, like identifying in that section, the 14 days and saying, all right, I'd like that to be parentheses 28 days or 30, you know, a month, you know. Obviously, we're gonna pick something that makes sense here, but if you can give an idea of what you think makes sense there, I think, you know, giving yourself a moment or so makes sense.
All right, I think that makes sense.
Is it proper to, for each of us to also copy Joe as the chair?
I think as long as you're not making a quorum
We're
of the
not,
commission
right.
is the only issue, so, you
Yeah,
know.
as long as we don't talk about it, just so you know what we're sending in.
You're in the loop as a chair.
That would be great. I didn't know what's, actually, I have no picture with permission. All right, so I think just to follow up with Darcy, if you could just send us,
Yeah,
send us
so I'll do is
document.
tomorrow morning, I'll email each of these documents, and then again, if you wanna, you know, respond back, whatever works for you. Just gonna simply email the vote list or mark it in the Word document, attach together, whatever works for you. Perfect. Do we, just in terms of time frame, only because so I know, like, I have all comments in place, even if you don't decide you don't wanna give any comments. Do we wanna set sort of, you know, like if I send it out tomorrow, some sort of date in which you'd all be able to get back to me, and that way nobody feels like we're under pressure, but I also know that I haven't missed anybody's comments if I'm merging.
That would be,
I have a preference against that, I just wanted to make sure that I'm not missing somebody and, you know.
yeah, I mean, I think practically, I'm not gonna have any time this weekend, I'm gonna be away next week. So I'm really not, personally, I can't really look at it until the third. I'm gonna say the 15th of March.
Would be the end of the submission period. Okay.
I don't know, a little tough, but.
Okay, all right, can we,
Thank you all,
okay,
that'll be helpful.
all right, super.
And you can tell me if I captured everything you wrote.
All right. Staying on, okay, well, we're still on the correspondence communication, and kind of merging, jumping now into the 12 Fruit Street status. This deals with the bandpipe. I know that Andy had a long conversation with the email back and forth after Andy had talked. And I guess my sense reflected in the letter that he sent, which I included, which I sent around to you to do. I think Colin's letter and his actions, I think, have me shown some sort of responsiveness to kind of moving things along. He, you know, regardless of his misunderstanding about whether he needs to attend a meeting in the past, he has made steps. I know in talking to Jim about how to box in that chimney. I met with the contractors, because I think I'm the only Fruit Street property we can actually see this there. And they, great, pretty great view. So they came over, looked at it, and we're talking, and said, piece of cake, they can do it. I said, you know, you might want to consider the brick you use. I know that we had an issue with 7th Fruit Street, and we specified a certain kind of brick, and he goes, well, I might just suggest that they do the same brick that's up there now on the main chimney, which is not historic. It's in fact, so I think, you know, I don't know how people feel about that, but you know, I'd like to sort of let Jim know that I think he's being responsive, or not Jim, Colin know that he's being responsive, that we look forward to his coming back with a alternative design. He's asking us to, I think, sort it out for him whether the design is better than what's there now. I don't think that's anything we should advise him on now. I think that's something that when he refiles, we have that conversation with a public comment. But I don't think it's presumptuous of me or anyone else in the committee to sort of say, I prefer this versus that. You okay with that?
Absolutely.
Right. And in terms of brick, I mean, I do want to suggest that he specs materials and shows us some kind of drawing as part of his application. And would you, I mean, do you think from an historic preservation or not preservation, but is it better to sort of match the brick to the Sebden stuff that was the Portsmouth standard rubber versus trying to match it to what's there currently?
I feel like that's something we should only discuss once the application is in front of us and maybe suggest to him he has some alternatives.
Well, I think that's the issue. I'm not sure his options may be limited around what he can find is a, half brick or quarter brick laminate for a time that he's gonna use, so.
Oh,
We really do have to see what he comes out.
Yeah, so if he comes with,
Yeah, I just remember when the garage was being done. The choices of brick for that facade were pretty numerous, weren't they?
We actually were limited because we had to follow federal guidelines and it had like a Buy America thing and whatnot, and we had some sort of, but it's years back, but it actually created a hassle for us, but we finally were able to find something that was I think as close as we could probably get to it, these, it was one of those, thin brick. In the,
Yeah, so the mortar.
I had to make a custom mold because the mortar joints would have been extremely large in the original design, and that would have looked comical downtown.
Right.
I think inappropriate, so I was trying to get closer to what you see outside of City Hall here, where it's really close together. They couldn't go quite as close as I wanted, but they were able to get that close. So, trying to get it as close as possible to the original form without looking like it was out of character. Because it's a precast structure.
all right, so, we'll let him come back with something that works for the contract. And we can decide it. All right, any other questions on 12? Okay, and the letter to residents, all right, you did a great job. Personally, I don't have any changes, but,
I did slash it, sorry. I was really trying to get to one page, which I was not actually successful in doing, but, I don't know, maybe,
I guess I did have one question.
Okay.
Bottom of page 1, where we're suggesting that people feel free to contact me if you'd like to receive updates. Really, what people should do is they should go to the website, the city website, and they can get updates automatically sent them. They need to, and I would just refer them to the website. So
okay, let me just take that right out.
you can just take that out.
I actually was gonna take it out.
Yeah.
To be honest, because I think we all come to the point that people should be going to the planning
Yeah.
office and, but then I didn't. Okay.
Any other comments? So do you want to make those changes, then get
I'll make
them
the changes.
out to Diane? And she can-
I'll send it to Diane and maybe Andy, I can leave with you the brochures that are, because the Museum of Old Newbury is gonna give a free 1-year membership.
Okay.
So that I got 25 brochures, she won't need them all.
Okay.
And then I'll send you also the flyer that Bethany,
Yeah, that'd be great.
and if she can print that all out.
We can definitely, yeah.
I'm quite sure how, and this is only for new residents, right?
Yeah, and I talked to Bethany about that, and, basically, she said she'll manage it as people come to her, but they have to fill out the form and like basically bring it to the museum, so she said she'll handle it. It's just a 1 year, it's not a huge financial lift, and I told her if there was somebody on the street that was not a new member, but they wanted to be a member for a year, I would make it good for her.
Well, I have mentioned reflect our thanks to her and to the museum for doing it, so it's a great idea.
Yeah, and she's enthusiastic about it.
Good. All right, any other business? Motion to adjourn?
Just
Yes.
under old business, you have potential new commissioners.
Oh, that's right, sorry. Is Mark still on?
I'm still here.
Is there anything from your architect, friend?
I would just delete Dave Carey. I've talked to him again. He's very evasive. I think we should just give up on this.
Okay. I'm wondering whether, though, we should really be aggressive at finding a realtor to be honest with. I did talk to, and I mean, it was true, I did have an extensive talk with the listing agent of number 10, and she was interested, but then she said she just has rejoined the River Valley Charter School board, and is doing some heavy committee work with them, and so I think to keep that at the time.
Yeah, yes. Who she is.
Yeah, what's her name now?
Well, I can't remember her name,
No.
but
I have written down some. What's her name? She lives on Broad Street. Lived here for years. Really, very interested in historic renovation.
I can, but, I guess. It, brings us back to the conversation we were having earlier about the ordinance and the regulations, because I believe, if I'm correct, the ordinance doesn't tell you you need these types of people on the commission, but the regulations tell you, and that is a place, I will say, it has been a struggle to sort of fulfill that.
Yeah.
And while.
I'm sorry I didn't identify that earlier, actually, because it is one of the things that I think about mainly because I think we have to make sure the cities of government in order
And also, it actually specifies that everybody is supposed to be nominated by the Museum of Old Newbury, which is not at all interesting in doing that. I've been talking to Susan Edwards and to Bethany about it, neither one of them wants, given that role and responsibility, so. I think we should, I think we should just all be thinking about who would be really good contributors. And if they bring some expertise, whether that's real estate or architecture or historic preservation, or they're passionate about, you know, history, I think we should be open to all. So.
Yeah, I would love an architect, just because I think, they can push back on some of these, I can't do this, I can't do that. Well, you really can do it, it's gonna cost you, but I mean, that's what you're buying into, and when you're buying into the neighborhood. And I don't think we have that technical ability to kind of say that. And I think as I think about some of the things that are gonna be coming online, and this number, if 7 ever comes on, and number 1, I mean, those are gonna be major issues.
One is coming because they've already listed, they just listed all the.
All the stuff was
content
set up, yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think it'd be great to have some architects who can wisely put into this kind of issue. All right.
The city is Newburyport residents.
Yeah, that's a
That's
problem.
the
I'm trying to think of a couple, but
Right.
they're not either.
And then they have to recuse themselves when they work. Yeah,
Correct. They're working.
Right,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's just kind of narrow.
So it's sort of hard, you're trying to get someone who specializes in
That's right.
preservation architecture,
If I can't do the work, I'm not sure.
and you can't hire that guy on Bridge Street.
No.
for that one.
All right,
So, Joe, before we adjourn, just
yeah,
on the agenda is public comment. I don't know whether we're required
We did.
to. So we're, no idea or Jim, but that's where we are.
well, no one else, I mean, they would have waved their hand.
Okay.
No one else?
Yeah, we didn't have any other general public that would have commented locally, that's not an issue here, but, and obviously we had our audience here, they didn't see the stand up, but, it also, I mean, this happens a little more than boards and committees in the council, but, sometimes the public comment is treated like a distinct thing, meaning anything that might be relevant to the board commission,
Yeah,
versus public comment on a specific application, and so obviously you can distinguish that for applicants or for yourselves. You're not required to take public comment at every meeting unless it's, you know, codified by the ordinance or application, right? But you may also choose to have a generic one anyway, just to.
yeah, that was my oversight. Typically we do a general public comment, I was just raising through to get to the, to the end fruit, and,
Oh, no, and frankly, I think in your case, if I were chair, I would have done the same thing, because I think, you know, we try to expedite most of the boards I work with, try to expedite things based on the attendance of the room, so there's not, you know, some people waiting necessarily for hours. And I also think in general, like you said earlier, it does make sense in my view for the applicant always to do the presentation to get the update for everybody, otherwise how can the public comments be informed about what, you know, what's going on? So it does make sense, I think, to have the public comment after that, because everybody has the benefit of the most recent information.
right. All right. Any motion to adjourn?
So.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned at 8:03.
So, 8:04.
Who seconded that?
Good night, Mark.